Top of the hour, and you're just in time for the day's top stories from our NTV newsroom live from the Nation Center.
True or not true, Lilian Bogo Amolo. Richard Evani Dubai.
24 suspects of the NYS scandal denied charges preferred against them in court.
How else could you make a mistake on things that you are completely aware of?
7 banks under investigation on facilitating theft of funds at the NYS.
People will be left saying, kwani Chege alikuwa mwizi? Kwani Chege alikuwa mwizi?
Bernard Chege, the survivor of the City Park shooting, says police are treating him as a suspect.
Kitengela police told to release truck full of charcoal on orders from above.
NTV Tonight with Gladys Gachanja and Mark Masai.
Thank you for joining us. It has been a busy day at the courts regarding the NYS scandal. We continue on NTV Tonight with that hashtag state of corruption.
And helping us with the sign language interpretation tonight is Flora Atieno. In our first story, suspects of the National Youth Service 8 billion shilling scandal led by Youth Affairs Principal Secretary Lilian Mbogo Omolo and NYS Director General Richard Ndubai have pleaded not guilty to charges leveled against them.
The prosecution is opposed to the release of the suspects on bail and also wants the court to issue warrants of arrest against suspects who failed to appear in court.
NTV's Seth Olale followed the proceedings at the Milimani High Court and filed this report.
24 suspects involved in the theft of 468 million of the 8 billion shillings loot at the NYS arrived in court a few minutes after noon with heavy police escort. One after the other, the suspects led by Youth Affairs Principal Secretary Lilian Mbogo Omolo were taken to the basement court cells. The suspects were then brought before Anti-Corruption Chief Magistrate Douglas Ogoti at 2 p.m. They were each charged with 10 counts of criminal offences, including abuse of office and willful failure to comply with applicable procedures on guidelines relating to the management of public funds. The suspects being represented by lawyers Cliff Ombeta, Gashie Mwanza, Gihanga Mwangi, Gitange Tom, Samogutu and Migu Zogamba pleaded not guilty to the charges. Youth Affairs Principal Secretary Lilian Mbogo Omolo and NYS Director General Richard Ndubai denied authorizing payment of 28 million shillings to Ameritrade Limited for services not delivered between January 2015 and March 2017. 31 other NYS suspects pleaded not guilty to several corruption charges, including conspiracy to commit an economic crime. The prosecution, which also sought warrant of arrest for 8 suspects who failed to appear in court, requested the court to adjourn the case to Wednesday for security fears since it was running late. However, Chief Magistrate Douglas Ogoti ruled against the prosecution's demand. The suspects who have been brought to court by the Director of Public Prosecution for the very first time are likely to face a prolonged court case, judging by the number of the suspects, or rather the accused in this particular case, and also the charges leveled against them. But by the end of it, it is this court behind me that will determine whether the accused are guilty or innocent. Seth Olale, NTV, Milimani Law Courts.
We're now joined live by NTV's Enoch Sikole at the Milimani Law Court, where he has spent the entire day reporting on the proceedings.
Sikole, since early afternoon hours in the dock, and it doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon, does it?
Mark, quite a busy evening, and right now as we speak, it's quite like, for example, a busy courtroom as we speak. Remember, they're just going through the last files of the cases that were brought here, 10 files that were brought by the Directorate of The Directorate of Public Prosecutions, led by the DPP, Nurdin Haji, they are looking at the loss of billions at the National Youth Service, and quite a busy evening here, busy afternoon. Remember that 3 suspects were to be arraigned here, but only 24 showed up. 9 failed to appear here. So tonight, as we speak, 9 of them could be, or a warrant of arrest could be issued against the 9. But remember, they also have a window period after after the cases or the pleas are taken. Then they could apply against those warrants. Remember, the prosecutions has maintained that those who failed to appear in court had no sufficient reasons not to appear. So they will try to apply and, for example, explain why they failed to appear in the court. Remember, the loss of billions of National Youth Service is a story that has hit headlines, with the president giving directions to investigators to ensure that those who are involved in the haste at the NYS are brought to book or face criminal charges. So the DPP has been following that. The DCI, they have been engaged in serious investigations, and now the files are here in the court of law. They have to prove beyond doubt that the suspects they have in custody were involved in one way or another in the looting that happened at the National Youth Service, with the fund losing close to 10 billion shillings. They say it's an amount that ranges between 8 to 10 billion shillings. And yesterday, the DPP was clear that the pending cases, the pending bills amounts to 8 billion shillings. So they are looking at quite a huge sum of money. Remember, it's not the first time the NYS has been dogged with corruption. Remember, 791 million shillings lost at the NYS. It was stolen, allegedly stolen by those who are in charge of the NYS and senior government officials. And remember, heads rolled, and those who are in charge were relieved of their duties. New appointments were made. The story remained the same. It was like a story of the same forest, but different monkeys jumping in, jumping out with money that was meant to enhance the productivity of the youth in the country. So it's quite a long story here. We're still here. And remember, after the application, there is a probability that there could be application for bails by those who are in police custody, those who are in court right now. But as it looks, the probability that the suspects here might spend another night in police custody is quite high. Mark.
Thank you, Enoch Sikoli, speaking to us from the Milimani Law Courts. It has been a very long day there, with over 20 suspects arraigned in court. And of course, the final pleas still going on as we speak. And later on, as he has told us, application for those absent and reasons given why they should not be arrested, as the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions has recommended should not happen, is going to be going on.
And as that continues, they are not the only ones who are going to be investigated. Central Bank Governor Patrick Njoroge confirms that some banks will be held liable for facilitating the dubious NYS transactions, but declined to either confirm the number or name the lenders under the investigators' radar.
He says the CBK is allowing the Directorate of Criminal Investigations to conclude investigations before deciding on the next course of action. But as NTV's Jane Gweri reports, as many as 7 banks are being investigated for laundering the NYS loot.
The rumbling noise of shuffling notes at a banking till. Now there are growing rumbles among the public that articulate growing distrust in the banking sector as details of the National Youth Service scandal unfold. With huge sums of money reported to have been stolen, a key avenue is banks. The very institutions mandated to safeguard Mwananchi's money have played a part in stealing it. The Central Bank of Kenya Governor Dr. Patrick Njoroge, while confirming that theft must have been aided by banks, steered off key specifics, neither naming the lenders nor confirming how many they are.
the investigations that are taking place, I mean, it is important that we give the investigators space. Let's not anticipate.
NTV has established that 7 banks are under investigation on the charge of money laundering and profiting from the funds said to have been looted from the NYS. Of the 7, 5 are Tier 1 banks, while the other 2 are 2-tier institutions. Our sources further reveal that in one of the big banks, investigators are probing 9 accounts, 5 of which were active and operated by 2 people. One of the tactics the account holders used to clean the money was they will write various payment checks prior to the stolen monies hitting the accounts. They will then ask the recipients to withdraw the funds once they land in their accounts. This will leave the original account with little or no money shortly after the stolen money reflected, meaning that even if the account was flagged as suspect, the money was already out. In January 2016, after the first NYS heist, the CBK formulated new regulations that made it mandatory for anyone transacting over 1 million shillings to issue a written explanation of the transaction. Additionally, one is expected to explain what the funds are to be used for, as well as the beneficiaries.
It's not an issue of enforcement or lack of understanding. It is an issue of maybe people not following the guidelines deliberately or deliberately, because how else could you make a mistake that on things that you are completely aware of?
In the aftermath of the NYS2 scandal and the precedent set by the list of those already facing charges, bank employees ranging from branch managers to relationship managers and financial experts are among those who are likely to face arrest and prosecution. Jean Nguiri, NTV.
Well, even as the cases proceed in court, colossal amounts of money still remain unaccounted for in the numerous graft cases the country is currently facing.
This coming at a time when the Jubilee government has formulated a game plan dubbed the Big Four Agenda, which largely focuses on economic growth, food security, manufacturing and affordable healthcare.
Trevor Mbije is here with some figures depicting how much the missing billions could achieve if put to the right use. Trevor?
Well, thanks, Mark and Gladys. It's easy to understand. This is the confirmed figure there. We're talking about 8 billion shillings. That's a confirmed figure that the DCI and the DPP confirmed that the people are facing charges towards. Now, let's break this down into the Big Four agenda like you mentioned earlier on. And first of all, one of them was food security. One of the other issues under that is the Galana Kulalu, which is about 10,000 acres model farm. The budget for that entire project was 7 billion shillings. So the 8 billion shillings that was stolen could actually fund it and you'd still have some change. Move on from that. Get to the next supplementary budget. This one was signed by the president just after the first election. The second election, there was a 12 billion shillings budget which was signed by the president. In that supplementary budget, there was a maize subsidy program which was supposed to cost 6.7 billion shillings. At the same time, there was supposed to be a cash transfer program under that same supplementary budget that was meant to cost 6.7 billion shillings. So the two could actually be funded by the 8 billion shillings and still have some pocket change. And even the supplementary budget itself would be funded way more than half. Forget about that jargon. Let's talk about the real spending by the Kenyans. The Nation Newsplex did a survey and realized that households in Kenya spend at least 40,700 per month. Half of that is spent on food, and that is on the higher end, and that is also a sign of poverty. If this was to be divided by the 40,000 that people are spending every other month, it means 196,560 households would be catered for. Move on from that. Let's get to the other issue of affordable housing, which is one of the main pillars the Jubilee government is working around. In that particular idea, they're supposed to have 500,000 affordable houses in all the major cities at a cost of between 1 million to 1.5 million. The Mavoko sub-county housing pilot project in itself, which is targeting to have at least 8,000 houses, would have been completely funded by the 8 billion shillings that has now been stolen, so to speak. And that project would be on its way right now, completely funded by the $8 billion. Move on from that. Let's talk about other issues of the county revenue allocation. There's manufacturing and job creation as well, and also healthcare. there are counties that the 8 billion shillings could actually fund their entire budget. One of the biggest allocations by the County Revenue Allocation Bill was for the county of Nairobi, which was standing at 15.7 billion shillings. Even that would have been funded by half. More than 10 counties are below the 10 billion mark. Most of them are way below it. Something like Lamu County, the budget for the entire county is 3.5 billion. Tharaka Nithi, the budget for the entire county is 3.6 billion. Elgeyo Marakwet, the budget is 3.7 billion. It means for the first two counties, the 8 billion could actually fund them easy and still have change. Even for Nairobi, that has the biggest share of the revenue allocation, which is 15.7 billion, more than half of that could still be funded. Imagine how much that would go in terms of healthcare and achieving every dream that the Jubilee government has. But that's not to be. The 8 billion shillings is missing. That's the figure. Mark, Gladys.
Trevor, thank you for crunching the numbers. And that's not the only figure in question in relation to a graft currently in the country.
Yes, Mark, a group of angry youth today stormed the Youth Enterprise Fund offices, demanding the resignation of the Enterprise Development Fund chairman, that is Ronald Osumba, and Chief Executive Officer Josiah Arabu.
The youth cited the questionable payments of 10 million shillings to dubious youth groups, saying the Youth Fund leadership should step aside to pave way for investigations by the Directorate of Criminal Investigations.
NTV's Mel Miendo with the details.
Whoever has been caught in this graft thing
will go home.
Yes.
And jail.
And someone like the CEO should step aside for investigation. Why has the PS stepped aside to give investigation and the CEO cannot?
Demands from the group of about 25 youth directed at Youth Fund Chairman Ronald Osumba following the revelation of graft at the fund centered around 10 million shillings unscrupulously paid to 4 youth groups. The group stormed the Youth Fund offices, urging for the resignation of the chairman as well as the CEO, Joshua Arabu.
Hang on, let me finish.
An internal audit for the financial year 2016-2017 revealed the wiring of 10 million shillings unprocedurally. The angry youth insisting that they too want their share.
And it's very sad kusikia vijana wanasema tugawane, because this is the attitude. It's very sad. It's very sad.
Following the suspension of the 7 officials, the Youth Fund management stated that it asked the DCI and the National Treasury to conduct a further audit of the fund's financial statement for the last 4 years. 90 days was the duration of this audit from March 3rd to June 3rd, 2018.
DCI walituambia wanaweza chelewa kidogo na investigations, but jana nimewapatia pressure. Nimewambia we must close this case. Treasury have said they will submit by end of this week.
Sisi ndio tumedetect huo ukora na sisi ndio tumeinvite the DCI to come and investigate. And I want to say this, if the DCI report implicates myself as part of the mess, I want to promise you that I will resign.
The dubious groups alleged to have colluded with the Youth Fund on the alleged scam include Duname Self-Help Group, which allegedly received 6.02 million. Oksano Youth Group in Kajiado North constituency was allegedly paid 4.07 million. Abengecho Self-Help Group from Kasarani constituency said to have been unprocedurally loaned 2.5 million, and Koroba Planners Group from Bomet Central, which allegedly received 665,000. This being the second time the Youth Fund has been thrust into corruption scandals over public funds. Mel Miendo, NTV.
And as earlier witnessed, it was a case of same script, different cast when the Director General of the National Youth Service and the concerned PS were arraigned in court today to answer to fraud charges.
It is not the first time that corruption suspects have been charged, and there have been a few convictions down the line, arguably for the so-called small fish. However, the follow-through has been lacking, and the biggest gap here has been the recovery of proceeds of corruption.
NTV's Olive Burrows examines or explains what comes after the court parade.
Many a well-heeled individual has been paraded in court on grand corruption charges. But once the initial outrage over the sums they're accused of plundering fades, more often than not, they ride off into the sunset with their ill-gotten gains. Their public shaming in the courts and in the court of public opinion a mere inconvenience on the road to an image cleansing and rebranding as a wholesome member of society.
Because I may say they may steal $1 billion, go in for 3 years or 4 years, and maybe pay a fine of $1 million shillings. After 3 years, which is not a long time, that's only 300 and I don't know how many months. It's very, actually, it's a short moment. Then I just come and begin to enjoy the assets that I stole.
When he took up office in March, Attorney General Kihara Kariuki pledged to streamline the asset recovery process, and there couldn't be a better time than now for him to prove himself.
The asset recovery unit doesn't seem very keen in recovering these assets, and if you truly will help this country in the fight corruption that I heard you speak against, the asset recovery unit is a key cog in that fight against corruption, because we cannot continue to be showing Kenyans that corruption is rewarding, because I acquire property through corruption and I continue enjoying that property.
Were this not the case, the chairman of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of the National Assembly, William Cheptumo, submits it wouldn't have been a case of same script, different cast on Tuesday when 24 Kenyans were arraigned in the anti-corruption court for conspiring to defraud the state of hundreds of millions of shillings.
We must come together to fight this vice if we are to conquer. The government and the private sector also must report fraud, protect whistleblowers without the slightest hesitation.
What public shows there have been of assets recovered are a drop in the ocean compared to the billions of shillings in taxpayer monies that are now fenced off as private estates. And while the parading of suspected tenderpreneurs might make for a good show, the true test of President Uhuru Kenyatta's commitment to justice for the Kenyan taxpayer lies in asset recovery. Olive Barrows, NTV.
Our focus on graft will definitely continue here on NTV tonight. We take a quick break here, but coming up.
Kitengela police told to release truck full of charcoal on orders from above. Thank you for staying with us. Violations of the current logging ban appear to be cropping up, with police in Kitengela arresting a lorry full of charcoal.
That's right. After the impound, the officers were ordered to release the truck, which is said to be owned by a prominent Kajiado politician, leading to complaints about interference by the officers.
NTV's Daniel Mule with a story of the truck full of charcoal that was released based on the infamous orders from above.
According to the police, this truck registration number KCA 195J was intercepted yesterday, carrying charcoal despite the ban on logging and burning and transportation of charcoal. The lorry and its occupants were taken to Kitengela police station with court proceedings set for today. However, today morning, the police officers were astonished when the OCS in the station told them to set the suspects as well as the lorry free. They were given further orders to have 2 cars escort the lorry. One, a police administration vehicle GKB 594J, and another car from Kenya Forest registration number KBP 215V. The police officers say the OCS told them to release the lorry, which they say is full of charcoal, saying he had received orders from the regional county commander and further orders from above. Saying he had received orders from the regional police commander and further orders from above to do so. When the police informed NTV about what transpired, we decided to follow the lorry to find out its destination. The police vehicle went as far as Mombasa Road, leaving the Kenya Forest vehicle to escort the lorry the rest of the way. The lorry finally ended up at the Kenya Forestry Conservancy headquarters in Karen. The officers involved refused to talk to us about why the charcoal ended up here, with the suspects allowed to go scot-free instead of being arraigned. According to the National Transport and Safety Authority (NTSA), this lorry registration number KCA 195J is co-owned by Asasfin Nyamokami Nyakundi and the Kenya Commercial Bank. The police we spoke to sought anonymity, saying they fear intimidation, but they say such orders from above have been the order of the day, with senior politicians and government officials involved. Daniel Mule, NTV.
Now, 6 people died while 9 others sustained injuries after a pickup collided head-on with a station wagon at Gyaki Junction along the Meru-Mikinduri Road.
The pickup driver, while attempting to overtake a lorry, collided with the overloaded station wagon, which was illegally carrying 13 passengers. Among the dead were the station wagon passengers and driver.
The injured were rushed to Meru Level 5 Hospital, while bodies of the deceased were taken to the Meru Level 5 Hospital mortuary.
The damaged vehicles were towed to Meru Police Station.
Hey.
Bernard Chege, a survivor of a shooting incident at City Park 2 weeks ago that claimed Janet Wayaki's life, now says his life is in danger, saying he needs police protection, claiming police have been harassing him in hospital.
Chege claims police treated him as a suspect under the guise of investigating the shooting at City Park, where 41-year-old Janet Wayaki was killed.
He spoke to NTV's Steve Juma from his hospital bed.
It is a strong wall of emotion that 26-year-old Bernard Chege struggles to break down to tell his account of an event that has left him scared. A shooting on the 20th of May at City Park that left him hospitalized and his companion, 41-year-old Janet Wayaki, dead. From his hospital bed where he's nursing his physical wounds, he tries to patch up his emotional scars inflicted by those terrifying scenes, and that today still haunts him.
So when I was about to open the windows so I can hear what they're saying, I saw all of them withdraw their guns. So when I started the engine, before I could go even 10 meters, they were shooting all over the place.
In his first TV interview since the fateful Sunday morning, Bernard recounts the morning's events, an account that contradicts that of the police. Chege says he reached out to the same officers who had shot at them and begged them to help stop the bleeding or get them to a hospital, but they did nothing.
When I was shot, I could cry for them to help me. Na wanaangalia tu. Sijui kama they wanted me to bleed out to death ama ni nini.
Chege claims police officers have since the incident been on his tail. For the better part of the day, detectives from the Gigiri police station had camped at the Avenue Hospital, demanding that he gives them his blood sample for DNA tests. He says he now fears for his life.
Sijui anataka DNA. Sijui DNA yangu. To confirm. Ati ni mimi nilikuwa huko. And I'm like, it is the same police who got me from the car with bullet wounds.
His family still wants answers on why the police opened fire on Chege and Janet and what their motives were. They claim this was a clear case of an extrajudicial execution.
But the thing which is scaring me is that the police have been up and down in the hospital, even especially from the day before yesterday and even today.
I hear rumors around here that some people have been given up to 24 hours to make sure that he is no more. So we'll be moving court because it is the government that must guarantee his safety.
In a case where the hunter is now becoming the hunted, Bernard Chege now claims that the police are determined to implicate him as a prime suspect into the murder of his companion at City Park. Steve Juma, NTV.
And Steve Juma will remain on that beat as answers are sought as to who was responsible. An 8-year-old girl is nursing serious injuries after being abused by her stepmother in Kahoya Estate, Eldoret.
She has now been rescued from her stepmother's house by neighbors who want justice for the minor. Gabriel Kudaka recounts her harrowing ordeal.
These marks on her body vividly mark her life of agony under her protector, now her tormentor. For over 1 year now, the girl has endured relentless, humiliating and terrorizing abuse from her stepmother, and that has cast a long shadow over her childhood. Until just recently, when neighbors came to her rescue.
Huyu mtoto amedhulumiwa, hata ukimuona mwili wake, amechapwa, ako na vidonda kila mahali, hawezi enda shule, anafungiwa kwa nyumba.
Huyu mama ananichapanga kila siku akitoka kwa duka nisipobadilisha mtoto na nisipompea uji. Alafu ananichapa ndo ananiingisha kwa besheni, ananichapa na pipe. Ananiambia nikulie kwa choo.
Neighbors say the class 3 girl has been forced to drop out of school and has since taken up household duties.
Huyu mtoto kwa hiyo nyumba ni kama kijagazi. Ni kama yeye ndio maid wa hiyo nyumba. Mtoto wa 8 years anaambiwa atoe mtoto pampers, asipotoa mtoto pampers anapigwa.
The girl's parents have since gone into hiding. She and her other siblings have been left to fend for themselves.
Na pia baba, tungependa kujua wakati mtoto anadhulumiwa, baba ya mtoto huwa wapi? Kwa sababu baba hayuko pale na yeye ndio mzazi haswa halisi wa huyu mtoto. Either wanashirikiana kudhulumu huyu mtoto ama baba ni absentee father. Ni kama mtoto ako na majeraha mingi sana ndani na nitakana mtoto afanyiwe special treatment, special tests.
Gabriel Kudaka, NTV.
Time to take another short break on NTV tonight. We'll be back with more.
Kenya's government
Good evening and welcome to NTV Business. I'm Dan Mwangi. The Employment and Labour Court has stopped Francis Muthaura from assuming office as the chairman of the board of the Kenya Revenue Authority. Justice Byram Ongaya suspended the appointment of the former head of civil service and 3 others after activist Okiya Omtata filed a petition challenging their appointments. The activist argued that the 3 were not competitively appointed and that the president's move to gazette the names was irregular. Muthaura, along with Charles Makori, Mukesh Shah and Leonard Idhau, will not assume office until the petition is heard. Now, is there a crack emerging between the Central Bank Governor Patrick Njoroge and the National Treasury CS Henry Rotich? Now, the governor says the central bank is under attack and it is apparent that the Treasury has a lot to do with it. Alex Mwangi with the details of that progressive rift.
It's time for action. Make no mistake, CBK is under attack.
They are words that were calmly spoken, but beneath the veneer of the Central Bank of Kenya's governor's composed demeanor is a battle for survival for the institution which has hitherto seen eye to eye with the National Treasury. The draft Financial Markets Conduct Bill 2018, which Treasury is keen to see implemented, is the elephant in the room. It is intended to ostensibly promote a fair, non-discriminatory marketplace for access to credit and provide uniform practices in the financial sector, but according to the CBK, its impact will be far from those ideals.
This is the financial sector equivalent of being asked to trade in your well-serviced SUV for a souped-up Subaru. It may have flashy lights, stabilizer at the back, noisy exhaust, and racing stripes, but it is still a Subaru. It actually takes a step, in our view, in the wrong direction. Okay? The bill emasculates the central bank.
Discussions between the CBK and Treasury regarding the bill started 2 years ago.
We would want a sort of a more, let's say, incremental approach, rather than sort of suddenly having a dichotomy in this. And that was it until we saw this bill when it was issued for discussion, circulation, and things like that.
The CBK is concerned that the bill waters down the Banking Act and leaves customers at the mercy of banks when it comes to fees and charges, because the regulator's hands will be tied with respect to oversight of what customers are charged. The bill also repeals provisions in the Banking Act for the CBK to deal with reckless lending by banks and further limits its power to issue prudential guidelines to banks. CBK says the bill would also strip it of the power to place banks under receivership.
In our view, this really doesn't go forward. It goes backwards substantially.
Although his opposition to the bill was clearly expressed, the CBK governor was not all gloom and doom about the proposed piece of legislation.
Yeah, in some countries, Australia for instance, it has worked. Now also, for that matter, you have South Africa that are struggling to get it in place.
With the economy expected to recover from the 4.9% growth registered last year, a tussle between the National Treasury and the banking regulator is the last thing it needs if it is to achieve the 6.2% growth forecast by the CBK this year, or between 5.5% and 6% as other financial experts have projected. Alex Mwangi, NTV.
Food manufacturer Nestle will close its regional head office in Nairobi at the end of July and relocate operations to Accra in Ghana and Johannesburg in South Africa, a move that could see workers left jobless. In a statement posted on its website, Nestle says it is reorganizing its sub-Saharan Africa operations, a process that will recluster the markets in which it operates. The statement reads in part, "Our team in Equatorial Africa region has done a tremendous job, but after trying for nearly 10 years, we can no longer sustain the cost of the regional head office with the size of the business there." End of quote. Nestle, however, hasn't disclosed how many people will be affected, but says it will strive to minimize the impact of the office closure. The Parliamentary Energy Committee is now rooting for nuclear energy to drive President Uhuru Kenyatta's Big Four agenda and lower the country's deficit and electricity tariffs. Oko Kusa with the details.
In one of the coastal cities of Russia, known as Sochi, nuclear energy experts have gathered for an international conference whose theme reads Global Partnerships, Joint Success. In attendance are members of parliament from Kenya. Kajiado North MP John Manje is heading the delegation. It is here that the legislators were to see the light.
The myth that we had that when you talk of nuclear, you're talking of something that is explosive, something that can bring maybe calamity in our country. I think that one has been now removed.
Yes, time has come for us to go nuclear.
Kenya has to attain that stage of development to be able to choose on which path to go. But all said and done, it's high time that nuclear energy be embraced.
The only way we can create employment in Kenya is to have a nuclear energy in our country.
Whether to go the nuclear energy way or not is a debate that has raged on in the country for close to a decade now. The question of how to generate reliable power to meet the country's ever-growing demand has continued to be a thorn in the flesh, with manufacturers crying foul over what they term as high electricity tariffs.
Talking about the cost of power in Kenya, I think it's a question that us as members of parliament and of energy committee will be interrogating those power bills.
We want energy to carry out or to run our industries, and unless we have abundance and cheaply priced electricity, we can forget about manufacturing.
Kenya's first nuclear reactor is expected to be commissioned by 2027, and it will produce 1,000 megawatts of electricity, which is equivalent to 42% of the country's current installed electricity capacity. The country generates 2,400 megawatts from all its available energy sources presently. Kenya joins a growing list of African countries that are in hot pursuit of nuclear power. Currently, it is only South Africa that is enjoying the benefits of nuclear electricity in the entire continent. Proponents of nuclear-powered electricity in Kenya believes that it will bring down significantly the cost of electricity in the country. Okokusa, NTV in Sochi.
Close to 36 months after construction of the Dongo-Kundu bypass started in Mombasa, the first phase of the road will be open for public use next week. The road is expected to help evacuate cargo from the port of Mombasa and decongest the Mombasa-Nairobi highway. Peter Mwangangi reports.
The once sleepy and sparsely populated Miritini area in Mombasa is coming to life. It has been transformed by infrastructure in a span of 3 years. Phase 1 of the Dongo-Kundu bypass starts at Bonje in Miritini and ends at the second container terminal at the port of Mombasa, a cargo handling facility whose operations began in 2016. The 11.4-kilometer dual carriageway also includes a 1.3-kilometer access road to the Moi International Airport. The project, which was constructed at a cost of 12.4 billion shillings by the Kenyan government and the Japan International Cooperation Agency JICA, will be commissioned by President Uhuru Kenyatta next week. New infrastructure projects here in Mombasa County, such as the standard gauge railway and now the Dongo-Kundu bypass, will come as a relief to many residents here in Mombasa in as far as congestion is concerned. There is still a long way to go because phase 2 and 3 of the Dongo-Kundu bypass are yet to be complete. Completion of these phases will provide an alternative for commuters crossing from Mombasa to Kwale. Currently, those crossing to either side have to go through the Likoni ferry channel, which is occasionally hit by delays due to the big number of people and vehicles crossing. The Kenya National Highways Authority, KENHA, says the two phases will cost 30 billion shillings and work will start by July. Construction will involve an 8.9-kilometer stretch from Mwache to Mteza, 2 bridges, and a 6.9-kilometer road from Mteza to Kibundani, effectively connecting the road at the Likoni Lungalunga Highway in Kwale. Peter Mwangangi, NTV, Mombasa.
Counterfeit goods worth millions of shillings was seized in a multi-agency operation in Nairobi's industrial area and Eastleigh in an ongoing countrywide crackdown on counterfeit products. The Kenya Revenue Authority says goods worth 34 million shillings were impounded at a go-down in industrial area that belonged to Chinese businessmen. The worth of the counterfeit goods from 3 other go-downs in the same business premise is yet to be established. The inspection that commenced at around 10 o'clock in the morning saw 5 among 10 go-downs inspected. Goods that did not meet the Kenya Bureau of Standards requirements were seized for destruction. Meanwhile, traders in Eastleigh Market whose counterfeit goods were impounded said the police are used to frustrating them and vowed to go to court.
So yesterday we came here, we identified these go-downs, and today we are undertaking an operation that has identified these 10 go-downs. These go-downs are stocking illicit goods. Like you can see in this particular one, all we have here is what we are calling counterfeit shoes. We also have another go-down here which has roofing tiles, also counterfeit. We have another one, again, of shoes, which we have not found the owner. We have also gotten a few of the owners who have no work permits within this country.
On the same issue of fighting fakes, we are getting reports that the Kenya Bureau of Standards Managing Director, that's Charles Ongwae, alongside the Quality Assurance Director and the Inspections Boss, are being grilled at the DCI headquarters over the rise of illicit trade. That is the MD of KEBS, that's Charles Ongwae, alongside 2 other senior managers at the organization, are being grilled at the DCI headquarters over the rise of illicit trade. We shall be following that up for you and definitely give you the details tomorrow. Now, a section of leaders in Kitui County have disagreed with Governor Charity Ngilu's plan to allow coal mining in the county, saying that local communities have not been involved. The leaders have called on the governor to first iron out thorny issues such as compensation for land before mining can proceed. Let's cross counties, and a plane belonging to German leisure airline Condor failed to take off at the Moi International Airport in Mombasa this morning after a bird struck one of its engines. A statement from Johannes Winter, the head of communications at Condor, said that a bird hit the left engine of the Boeing 767 shortly before takeoff, adding that the captain applied brakes and brought the aircraft to a complete stop. On board were 230 passengers and 10 crew members traveling to Zanzibar. All passengers were later taken to a hotel in Nyali where they will spend the night, and a replacement aircraft is expected to fly in today from Frankfurt. The Moi International Airport manager Walter Agong told NTV that the runway was closed for 25 minutes after the 8 a.m. incident. Agong assured that this did not affect other operations at the facility.
A Condor airline was taking off to Zanzibar, and while it was aligned on the runway, the pilot realized a malfunctioning engine, one of the engine malfunctioning, and he had to abort takeoff. After aborting takeoff, we acted within the specified time and managed to remove the aircraft from the runway.
That's it for business. I'm done. Time for me to fly out of here.
Welcome back. The High Court has declined to give orders restraining, the government from licensing Cuban doctors to practice in Kenyan clinics.
Dr. Samson Misango had filed a petition in court seeking to stop the government from licensing Cuban doctors to practice in local clinics. In the case, Dr. Misango claims there was no public participation, adding that the foreign medics were single source to the disadvantage of local counterparts.
Similarly, he claims there has been no evidence that Kenya has a shortage of doctors to fill any vacancies in the public health system. Employment and Labor Relations Court Judge Byram Ongayo, said the case will be mentioned on Thursday, May 31st, to consolidate it with another matter before the same court seeking the same orders.
Time to take another short break on NTV Tonight. We'll be back with the sporting action.
Welcome to NTV Sport. I'm Watson Karuma. The SportPesa Premier League leading goal scorer, Elvis Rupia of Nzoia Sugar, has been named the KPL Player of the Month of April by Kenyan sports journalists under their S-Jack banner. Rupia, who has 12 league goals in 16 appearances, beat Zoo FC duo of Michael Madoya and Nicholas Kipkurui to scoop the monthly gong. The Nzoia Sugar striker scored 4 goals in the month of April, as did Madoya and Kipkurui, but the player was picked ahead of the Zoo duo. The accolade Rupia took home comes with a 49-inch LG television and 100,000 Kenya shillings. It will be last against first when Sony Sugar hosts Gor Mahia in a midweek Kenyan Premier League encounter Wednesday afternoon. Gor Mahia top the standings with 31 points, having played 13 games, 3 less than the second-place team, Ulinzi Stars. Despite breaking a 4-game winless run by winning against Chemelil Sugar, Sony stayed bottom of the log and will be hoping for a miracle against the unbeaten Kogalo. The midweek fixture in Owendo continues Gor's crowded fixture schedule. They thrashed SS Assad 5-1 in a SportPesa Shield round of 64 match in Mombasa on Sunday, and will face Zanzibar's Jeshi la Kujenga Uchumi in a Super Cup encounter on Sunday in Nakuru. Now, Kenya has risen to position 28 from 30 in the latest World Rugby rankings following their 34-16 win over Uganda in the first leg of the Elgon Cup on Saturday in Kampala. The win was the first for new Simba's coach Ian Snook, and it saw Kenya overtake Germany and Chile in the rankings. With the loss, Uganda dropped 2 places from 35 to 37. Kenya's ranking of position 28 sees Simba's move to within 4 places of Africa's second best ranked team, Namibia, while Uganda is 1 position above Morocco, who have not moved, I beg your pardon. Globally, New Zealand, Ireland, England, Australia and Scotland remain unchanged in the top 5. Now, the Cleveland Cavaliers and Golden State Warriors will meet for the 4th straight year in the NBA Finals. The Warriors will be looking for a 3rd championship in that span, and LeBron James and the Cavaliers trying to wrestle the crown away just as they did in the 2016 series. Steph Curry inspired an incredible second half comeback as the Warriors beat